We're back now with the Whitewater Police Chief, Dan Meyer. Chief Meyer, thanks for being with us this morning.
Appreciate me having me on.
Well, to recap, the city of Whitewater has sent a letter to President Joe Biden requesting more resources to address challenges that have come along with an influx of immigrants from mainly Venezuela and Nicaragua over the last few years. This has been an ongoing challenge for the city, for your department, for almost 2 years, Chief. So what sparked the city to send the letter to the president now?
That's a good question. This is something that our Common Council talked to the city manager and myself about because really at this point we're headed down the road of, we know we need resources. So we're headed down the road of a potential referendum on a ballot. So at this point, we need to be able to tell our community members that we have done everything within our power to attempt to obtain those resources without taxing them here locally before going down that road.
That referendum would be a direct result of the influx of new citizens that are straining the resources then? Is that what has been talked about?
I think right. There is a very clear link to the amount of need that we are seeing in the resources that are needed in the city here right now, and that influx of people that have come here.
Let's talk about some of the specific challenges and obstacles that you are all facing right now. What do they have to do with? What are those specific challenges?
Sure. So I'd say the first and foremost, communication is a huge one. Most of the people that are coming here, and a lot of these things I'm going to talk about are going to be generalities, so please take that in mind. But most of the people that are coming here from Central America are speaking Spanish with very little to no English. So for us operationally, that means we have to be able to adapt to that, and that has taken it's borne a cost to us. So some of the things that we've done is we've offered training opportunities to our staff. We've actually, our union now has an incentive for someone who is fluent in a foreign language, but we've also had to use Propio, which is a service where we get on the phone. Within about 10 to 15 seconds, we have an interpreter who is kind of that middle person that is helping us communicate with people. But that really only gets you so far. I mean, you have to be to be able to use that well, you have to be in a pretty controlled environment. It doesn't work as well for traffic stops, especially some of the high-risk traffic stops. You really have to do some of that stuff on the fly, which is difficult for our staff. So communication is probably the biggest one. Another big one is housing. We're seeing a lot of over occupancy, which the biggest issue for us with that is the safety concern. We're seeing non-familial living situations where in some cases we have unaccompanied minors who are here. And unfortunately, in some cases, we've seen younger female victims who are being victimized by 20 to 30-year-old men. And a lot of that is just a symptom of there aren't as many places to live, and they're not living in safe conditions. So that was the most evident situation I've seen of that. We had a family that was living in a 10 by 10-ish shed that was not intended to be inhabited. And that was 10 degree below temperatures. This is early 2022. That was one of the things that really was kind of clued us in and narrowed our focus. Like this is an issue that needs immediate attention, and we really have to start focusing on how to address this. So communication, housing. The third impact for us is the transportation that we're seeing a lot more unlicensed drivers. I don't have the most recent statistics, but we saw initially about a threefold increase in our unlicensed drivers from January through August. In 2020 and 2021, we had about 60 to 70 unlicensed drivers who were cited. In that same time period in 22, it was about 200. So not a great situation, and we saw increased traffic crashes during that time as well.
Chief, can I ask here, Chief, what specifically are you asking for from the administration? What are the specific
Yeah,
resources you all need?
sure. Well, what we're asking for, and whether this is from state government, federal government, whoever has the ability to do this, is for resources. And what we would use, and I mean money. So money to fund personnel. We need officers. And the reason I say that is when we look at our ability to proactively enforce in this community, that has declined dramatically. One of the things that is most evident is our number of proactive traffic stops. That's reduced from roughly 2,400 proactive stops a year. In 2023, I don't have the final number, but we were on track for about half that, about 1,200 traffic stops, which is a huge problem for us. That takes away so many of the things that we can quash problems early by proactively identifying problems on some of those stops. So we need staffing in terms of law enforcement. But
So,
I also think we need, go ahead.
well, this is what I asked. So I asked Governor Evers what resources state government can provide. Here's what he said.
During the pandemic and subsequent to that, we brought federal money to the table around making, if people want to open up a business in a small business, they can do it. Many of those 9,400 businesses that opened up since that time, many of them are that Latino folks or other folks that are new to the area. So we've been doing that. We're continue to do that. And I'm glad Whitewater is understanding that they welcome, but we also make sure that we can help them transition to a better place.
Chief Meyer, what's your reaction to his response?
My reaction is I think that is a portion of the solution, but it's not direct enough. I think that's something that makes sense 3 to 5 years down the road, once this group has come here and has had a chance to get their feet under them. In the immediate sense, though, that we're at now, that money could be better spent with a liaison position, somebody that can help direct resources to this group of people. Because I'll tell you, the people coming here from Nicaragua and Venezuela, many of them, it's a huge culture shock coming here, educationally, in many different ways, with their language. A lot of the information that we've been putting together in Spanish, we're not able to even really reach them as well unless we're verbally passing that information along. It's just a different way that they're used to gathering that information. So expecting them to know how to get grant funding to open a business, I think it's a little bit it's not hitting the mark right now, at least. So to me, put that money toward funding for positions that are in enforcement, but also liaison positions. And I also think a lot of that money would be directed toward the nonprofit businesses that are here already helping these people and doing a great job with that.
Has Whitewater directly requested this kind of aid and resource from the state?
We have not. This is kind of the first time other than some conversations, this is the first formal request for that. We've been looking for grant funding and not seeing anything really close to or that hits the mark on what we're looking for. So this is our our community's formal request for that.
So Wisconsin is one of the states that doesn't allow undocumented immigrants to drive legally. That letter mentioned officers encountered 3 times the number of unlicensed drivers on the roads compared to previous years. That takes up a lot of their time. Do you think restoring those licenses in Wisconsin would make a difference?
And I think pragmatically speaking, if people are able to go take the written test, show that they can drive safely, I think that's a better situation than having them make the decision to get out and drive, putting themselves at risk, other drivers at risk. So I think I would likely be supportive of allowing that, as long as they go through the same requirements that any other driver would.
Is there a timeline of when you would need these resources? You said a referendum is possible. So when would you like to see either the federal government or the state act on these requests?
I don't have a strict timeline, but the sooner the better. A referendum will likely be happening in 2025. That's probably when our question would be on a ballot. Obviously, there's a lot more that would have to happen before that's set in stone, but the sooner the better.
Chief Meyer, thank you so much for joining us on the show today and breaking down the needs of your city right now.
Thanks again for having me.